It's that time of year where, I don't know if y'all noticed it was a little chilly last night this morning. A2 man. Leaves started changing. Everybody's here because the time went back, so y'all got here earlier. Hey man, want to do it? And so the seasons are changing once again. I know. And so we actually have a new series that really is a reminder to me of kind of, I feel like every time the season changes, it's a reminder that in life we have different seasons. And how even as the seasons change, that we have these changing seasons that happen in life. And so today we're going to talk from the title, Changing Seasons. And it's called A Life in the Transition because this series is going to be over three parts. And so the first part is A Life in Transition. It's going to be this Sunday and the next 2 Sundays. We're going to talk about this idea of changing seasons, about this idea of how in our life you have different seasons in your life and different things that happen. And what we're going to use as a backdrop for this conversation is we're going to look at the life of David. 3 different distinct scenes in his life. And what I hope you do is, as you listen, as we go through the scriptures and go through the passages, it plays out like a movie in a lot of ways. But what I want you to do is to look at those things and see what principles can I take away from what David went through in these different seasons of his life that I can apply to where I am. Like, what is God saying to me in the midst of my transition? In the midst of my journey? In the midst of where I am now, what is he saying to me by us looking at this life of David? Because when God was like, okay, this is what we're doing now, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing, God. Like, kind of. And it's like, since I know where we're headed, I'm like, oh man, this is good, and somebody needs to hear this. And so I always invite you to take out your phone, take out something to write with, whatever. But I believe God's going to say something to you in what we're going to look at that I want you to just not only just say, oh man, that's good, Pastor, but then to act on it. Like, I know I say that all the time, but I think, just like James says, we can't be just hearers of the word, but we have to be doers of it. And so if there's ever, I feel like a season where God is saying, hey, here's where we got to go, here's where we got to roll, this is it. And so just like we talked about purpose a couple weeks ago, and I feel like we're where he has us going right now, I think, like I said, this is for someone in here, this is for someone watching online or whatever, but I want you to catch what he's saying to you, amen? All right. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to read from 1 Samuel 16, and the whole passage today is going to be 1 Samuel 16, verses 1 through 13. So 1 Samuel 16, verses 1 through 13. So I'm going to read through it, and then after I read through it, we're going to just take a couple quick looks at it, and then we're going to go home and get some chicken or whatever it is we're going to do next, amen? Everybody got an amen on the chicken. You saw that? There we go. All right. All right. That's right, Pastor. So 1 Samuel 16, it'll be up here on the screen. And I'm going to read from the New American Standard. Feel free to read from whatever Bible that you have with you. And it says as follows. Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? He says, fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have selected a king for myself among his sons. But Samuel said, how can I go? When Saul hears of it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take the heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. You shall invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you should anoint for me the one whom I designate to you. Verse 4. So Samuel did what the Lord said and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the city came trembling to meet him and said, do you come in peace? He said, in peace, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. He also consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they entered, he looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Next Jesse made Shammah pass by. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all your children? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is tending the sheep. Then Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. And Samuel arose and went to Ramah. Interesting story, right? Interesting thing about like he's going to become king, he gets his call and all of this stuff, and he brings him in. And so it's interesting here. Notice how God orchestrates everything that's happening here. Samuel feels God telling him to go meet Jesse and anoint the new king. He's scared to go because he's like, I work for the king, and so if the king knows I'm going to give another king the anointing, he might kill me. So he's nervous about going. And when he gets there, everything works out. The people accept him, Jesse comes, and when he's there, he's ready with Jesse and his sons, and they know that one of them is going to be anointed king. Put the picture up for me. I want to show you this. So this is like a picture of that horn of oil that he had, that he goes to anoint them. And what he does is when he says, take the horn, it's actually from an animal. They have this horn, they put the oil in it. And what they do is the person, whoever's going to be the one that's king, they kneel down and they let the oil flow out and they pour it on them, and that's how they get anointed. That's how the whole process works. And what's interesting is that as the process, as they go through this whole process, and Samuel is looking at the sons, he's like, okay, man, he must be this one. He looks like he can be a king. He must be this one. No, and they go through the whole process, and none of them seem to be the right one that's supposed to be the king. He finally gets up David, and the oil flows for him. The oil will actually come out, and that's the one that's supposed to be the king. And what's interesting, if you look, put back up verses 6 and 7. So I want to point out something here. I know y'all probably saw it when we read it before, starting with do not look right there, where it says, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I rejected him. For God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. You know, one of the things about this is, it's good for us as individuals to realize that God is not limited by how we look on the outside. Now, God doesn't say, oh, because you look like this or you don't look like this, I'm not going to be able to use you. I'm not going to be able to call you. I'm not going to be able to fulfill your purpose because of how you look on the outside. But it made me on the other side challenge and say, man, do I really have a heart to look for people as God does? Do I look at people and treat some people a certain way because they look nice, because they seem to be a certain type of people? Or do I look at other people and treat them not as well because they don't look like the other folks? Again, if you go back to, we'll look at it later, but 1 Samuel 13, where it talks about David being this guy after God's own heart, and said God was going to anoint the person to be that person. Do we have a heart after God? Do we have the heart of God towards people? Is one of the things that jumped out to me when I first looked at this. But when it comes to us, here's the thing. We can't miss the fact that God doesn't see us as we see each other. But also, here's the more important thing. God's plan for us is not limited based on our outward appearance or what others think about us or how others view us. And what frustrates me about this is that if you told my dad that, hey, I'm going to anoint one of your sons to be king, he would have brought, well, it's only two of us, but he would have brought us both, at least. But he wasn't even invited. He wasn't even considered to come. It must be a frustrating thing to have people who've known you your whole life, but they don't see you but a certain way. They've been around you all these years, and again, this is family. And they're like, clearly you don't have a great destiny on your life. Clearly you don't have purpose. You need to stay out there smelly with the sheep and all of that good stuff. Sometimes those who have been around you your whole life can't see your potential or see you beyond where you are currently. Notice how God saw David different from the others did. He saw David in a different eye, in a different perspective than everybody else. The thing that bothers me about this passage, or about this part, is if it was up to them, David would have never became all that he was supposed to become. If it was up to other people, David would have never fully walked into his destiny. You say, well, Pastor, why does that matter? Because if it was up to other people, you wouldn't be all that you're supposed to be. If it was up to people judging on you, maybe from where you're from, maybe from the family that you're from, you would never be able to do something great. Maybe you would never be able to be used by God. Maybe you would never be at a place to go beyond just the expectations from where you are. See, I can use me as an example here because statistically speaking, where we grew up, there's people who've gone to jail, there's people who are dead, there's people who got on drugs, there's people who've done all these things from the neighborhood. I ain't talking about just the community. I'm talking about like on my street, people I grew up with, people I know, like who it didn't end well. But what's also good is there's so many people who've done and surpassed the labels or expectations of what people said that should come from this area, and this school, and this community. And I need you to be able to see that the destiny that God has on your life is so much greater than where you're from, than the family you came from, than how other people saw you, and based on how people view you based on your mistakes. Because sometimes people say, I think about Dr. Woodley. We have a friend who she used to be the principal up at the school up here at McLaren High School, which is kind of it's the alternative school here in College Park. And so she was 15 and got pregnant. And she used to go to this school. And she said she grew up right around the corner over here in some projects. She said people told her they were so disappointed because they said, she's never going to amount to anything. And not only did she go on and be able to get a doctorate, but she went back to the very same school and became the principal and helped so many other young people to overcome the stigma of being single, being uneducated, being black, being a woman, being pregnant at 15, to go on and have this amazing career and amazing life. But when she tells her testimony, the thing that strikes me was she talks so much about the fact that all these people, even family members, would say to her, like, your future's over. That because of what you've done, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to do anything. And when I look at this, it's funny how even in David's story, you know how some people view you because they exclude you. Because they tend to not, like, they have something, and even if you come, they still treat you a little, Because I can imagine the king's prophet comes to the place, they all probably got dressed up. One of us is going to be king. They getting ready. And then he come in smelling like sheep because he literally came from the field. And I'm sure that wasn't cool. And I'm sure that wasn't comfortable for him. But God didn't see him like everybody else saw him. You have to know that God has more in store for you than what others think. And I believe that God's entire plan for your life would surprise many, including you. If you knew all God had planned for you, it would surprise you. If you knew all the things that hadn't come to pass yet for your life, it would surprise you. Here we go. We must not accept the expectations of others for our life. I'm going to say that again. We must not accept the expectations of others for our life. You see it up there. Instead, we accept God's expectations and plans for our life. This might seem like simple words, but what I just said was profound. You say, why do you say that, Pastor? Because I know so many people that have accepted and taken on what other people said about them, that they were scared to go beyond that. People put labels on them because of circumstances, experiences, or whatever, and they think they are those labels. and they don't exceed and go beyond that. And so for you, and you only know this, have you settled in life because you've taken on the expectations of other people? Have you taken on what other people have said or thought about you, and you've put it in park and say, well, I'm just going to be stuck here. I'm just going to be, this is my lot in life. Have you done that? Or have you taken a step out to branch out and really say, you know what? I believe God's telling me to do this. And even if I tell some of the people that I grew up with, they would look at me crazy to say I'm going to go do this. But still, you go for it and do it anyway. I think about this line that says, a steady paycheck is a recipe for complacency and getting comfortable. And you know how hard it is when you're able to finally get your bills paid good, have a little free time, whatever, to then take a leap of faith and go and try something else. It's the idea, like I finally got to the top of a mountain, and you want me to go to another mountain because I got to go back through that valley to get there? When it's easy to just sit and stay on this mountain that I'm on. It ain't a big mountain, but I'm on the top of it. But you know the problem with it? You're on this mountain, and although a part of you wants to stay, really, there's something inside of you that can't get comfortable there. Now, we can stay there for another year, another 2 years, another 5 years, but there's always still something on the inside that makes you feel like, man, I feel like I should start this business, or I should go back to school, or I should try something else. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what are you waiting for? What's interesting is we see other people take the leap and they go down the mountain, and when we see them on the next mountain, we're like, oh man, look at what God did. And you know it's possible, but if I'm honest, I think sometimes the question is what we think to ourselves is not whether God can do it, but what we silently say to ourselves, and not out loud, especially not at church, is that I know God can do it, but will he do it for me? Do I really believe God would do that for me? Like, I know this person who totally changed their career and they're doing great and all this stuff, but would God do that for me? Will he really allow me to go through all of these changes from where I am to get to where I'm supposed to be? Like, I don't know. One of the things about this whole thing about accepting their expectations is I believe we're worried about what other people say or think. And can I release y'all today to say, who cares what they say or think? I mean, for real, who cares what they say or think? Our job should be pleasing God. I think y'all probably heard me say this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. To me, you know what success in life is? It's to discover and fulfill your God-given purpose. No matter what that looks like, no matter what season you're in, you need to locate and then fulfill what that is, what God's called you to do. Because at the end of the day, you know what I realized? I checked my Bible again to make sure, but I don't think when we get to heaven, God's going to say, hey, what did they say about you? He's not going to ask me, what did they think about you? He's going to ask me, did I fulfill what he called me to do? You know that whole thing about, well done, my good and faithful servant? And so if that's not the requirement, why are we holding that up as a limitation? If that's not the standard with which he's going to judge us, why do you allow those words and thoughts of others to keep you stuck? And you know what's funny? Sometimes when people are dead and gone, and that tape recorder of what they said is still playing in your head. Those people, you ain't seen them in 20 years, and you remember what they said, and somehow Satan puts the tape player on, I guess tape player, I'm dating myself. He puts the MP3, I don't know what he records it and has that looping in your head. How about that? It's playing back in your head. And we got to stop it. And you got to move beyond it. Put up verse 12, Joshua, or Saul. Look at verse 12 here. It says, so he sent and brought him in. This is when he brought David in. Now he was ruddy with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil, anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day. It's funny, again, I said David didn't even know any of this stuff was taking place. He just comes out from the field in this place and gets anointed king. And it's funny that he is out working and taking care of what he's supposed to do, and God finds him where he's supposed to be. He's out doing what he's supposed to do, and God knew how to find him. And the question is, do you know, I believe that God knows where he's leading you, and he also knows where you are currently. You say, why do I bring that up? Because I've met people who say, man, I got to make sure I'm in the right place. I got to make sure I'm here. And you think God doesn't know where you are? Like he doesn't have GPS, like, man, where did I put Cindy? I know I had her ass on. He knows where you are. He knows where you are. And even though all these people had this big ceremony, they got this big sacrifice, they're about to let the anointing go, they're about to do all this and announce the king, David's out there working right where he should be. And God knew how to get him to where he needed to be. And you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah, y'all know what I'm saying. He knows how to get you where you need to be. He knows how to connect you to the right people at the right time. But then the question is this, though. Hold on, because we got to have two sides. The question is, are you where you're supposed to be now? David was doing what he was supposed to do. He was tending to the sheep. Because it's funny about that, and we won't talk about this, but what if David was like, man, these sheep will be all right today. I'm going to go kick it with my friends. And they went out to the pasture and he wasn't where he was supposed to be. He would have missed it, right? So David being where he was supposed to be, even though they tried to give it away, they couldn't. Like David, you might feel like, man, I'm just out here in the field working. I feel like I'm just out here doing stuff. But in reality, God is training and preparing you right now. You say, man, I'm just running to school. What am I doing? I got frustrations. Man, I'm just working on this job. What am I doing? And even in where you are now, God's preparing you. God's training you for something. See, it's easy. We know the story that he became king. But when he was going out day in and day in and day out, taking care of sheep, he didn't realize that he was on his way to his destiny. And what I think about is the fact that he's being faithful in these little things so that he would be able to take care of something when it became great. I think this guy named Jesus had talked about that in the New Testament. That's a whole nother story. All right, here we go. Can y'all say, it's okay, Pastor?
It's okay, Pastor.
All right, I'm going to say it, but I'm just saying. Give me the will you be. Put it up there. Will you be faithful in watching the sheep while waiting for your call? I said it's okay, Pastor. Hey, it's okay. That's the question. Will you be faithful in watching the sheep while you're waiting on your call? And I know y'all saying, Pastor, there aren't sheep in Atlanta. I get it, but you know what I mean. In the current season that you're in, where you're working right now, in the transition that you're dealing with, if you're at the place where you're like, Pastor, something has to give because I can't take another year of being here. Okay, but will you be faithful tending to the sheep where you are until you get the call from God? Because that's the question. David was faithful where he was with the opportunity was given to him. And then he got the call. I believe your time and opportunity will come. But how will God find you when he calls? How will he find you? Will you have been faithful and diligent? Will you have hung in there? Will you have fruit? Even in the area where you are. I believe the fact that he learned how to lead sheep and to take on things and to handle obstacles, which we'll talk in the next 2 weeks. And the way he learned to trust God, even in this season, prepared him for what was to come. And I believe in your walk, in your spirit, where you are, the things that you learned about God, the things that you learned about yourself, the way you've grown and developed, God's using that for something else that's going to come. Or, say or. Will God find you complaining with a bad attitude, mad because you still with these stinking sheep? I got to water them every day. I don't even have help my brothers in the house. Will that be you? How will he find us? David is anointed in front of his brothers. David is anointed in front of his brothers. It's an interesting thing that he gets anointed in front of the very people who thought little of him. And I believe that there's some folks who may have discounted you or simply counted you out who will get to witness what God's going to do in your life. Some of those same folks who said this, that, and all that, everything else about you, what we should say, call you everything but a child of God. Some of those same folks will get to witness what God's going to do in your life. They're going to witness you rising above where you are right now. Rising above the obstacles and everything else. I believe that God's blessings and favor on your life, when you look at David, as he got anointed in front of them, it's not so that you can boast about it. So when you are put out, are above this situation, when you are anointed king, I guess you could say like David, the fact that you get anointed to be king is not so that you can boast. It's not that you can say, oh, look at me now, I'm this, that, whatever. Because that's a temptation. Like, they dogged you out. It's like, don't play. You know the king can put people in jail, right? No. That's not the whole point. The point is so that as you show what God's done in your life, it can be an example for other people. What God does in your life should be a witness to be able to draw others to him. It should be something so that other people will see and be like, man, if you can do that in his life, then man, what can they do in my life? Also, it should remind you or encourage you when you see God doing stuff in other people's life that he's still working, that he's still busy, that it's not over yet. See, when you realize that everything that was for David, God did it for him, and I know it's such a like Christian cliche to say that what God does for me is for me, but it's true here. They tried to give away his oil, they tried to give away this thing, and God made it happen just for him. And so, if you can believe and see that for David, that what God had set aside for him was for him. Now see that stuff for you, that what God has for you is for you. Then not only could we not show up and be like, okay, I'm all this and that because God did it, but what we also could do is now realize that we can celebrate other people as they succeed. We can congratulate people as they do well, as God does stuff in their life, because I know what God had for them was for them. But then here's the other part that you really need to listen to. If you can believe that, then you have to also, at the same time, you're saying, I believe this. And what you're believing is the fact that if you didn't get the job, if you didn't get the opportunity, if you went for this, if you tried to get it and it didn't work out, that wasn't for you. Because we can't say what God has for me is for me and then get mad because I applied for this position and they hired somebody else. Because that means that wasn't the one. Even though it looked like the one, right? Even though it sounds like that was supposed to be it, that wasn't it. But then, if that's true, then it also means that God has the right position for you. And so it comes back to that idea of, will you trust him? David was doing a good job at what he was good at. He had success where he was in this season. But just because he was having great success tending to the sheep didn't mean that he was going to always stay in that position. And I'm going to end on this point, but I say this because sometimes you find yourself and you're like, man, I'm in this season and I'm thriving and I'm doing well. But just because you're doing well using your gifts in one area, don't mean you have to stay there. You say, well, Pastor, maybe I'm working in customer service. You say, hey, it's going great. I'm getting promoted. I'm doing well. But that doesn't mean you have to be stuck in that position forever. Doesn't mean you're going to have to be there. Now, there's nothing wrong with being in customer service. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, when you see fruit, identify it, saying, okay, man, what is it about me? What am I learning about myself, my skill set? That's good. But be able to see that just because you're developing fruit and getting trained in one area, that God can still have something greater. And watch out for the temptation to get complacent and stop looking for what God wants you to do. Because there's people who I believe, maybe they were called to, and I'm going to use the education example, maybe they were called to be principals or assistant principals, but they say, oh, but I'm so good just sitting here with the kindergartners, or just sitting in one position, and there's more for God to do for them. I'm a guilty witness of this myself. When God first called me, I was teaching this discipleship class, had about 60, 70 people in these classes. I was so happy. I didn't want to do none of this. I wanted to just teach and go and work and do my thing. And God was like, I got more for you to do, but I didn't want to do more at first. And so I say that to say that at some point, I would have been happy being there, but I would have been unfulfilled because I felt God was pushing me to do more. Even though I was impacting people, even though there was fruit that was undeniable, even though things were going well, don't let that limit you from seeing God pushing you beyond your boundaries and stretching you and taking you to the next level. Because I imagine David could have been anointed king. He was like, but yeah, well, I'm good at this. This is what I'm good at. Other people see me doing this, they think I'm good at it, so I can just stay here forever. And I believe there's more. Amen? I'll say this again. The good news here is that as you do what God has told you to do, you can be assured that God hadn't forgot about you. I talked about how that oil wouldn't flow. He said, nope, that's not the one, until David came in. And then he said, that's the one I want you to anoint. And he received that anointing. And so, I want to end with 2 questions that I really want you to consider and think about. The first one is this: will you allow others to talk you out of your destiny? I said it earlier, but I'm bringing it back again because I want to hit you. Will you allow others' perception of you to talk you out of your destiny and what God's called you to do? Will you allow lack of funds? Will you allow stuff that hadn't showed up yet cause you to talk you out of doing what you just have peace in your heart about doing? And the second and last question is this: will you allow your current position and season of life cause you to think that God can't use you to make a difference? You are not limited by where you are in your season. And I'll say it this way: in spite of where you are right now, God can produce fruit in your life. Amen. In spite of where you are right now in your current season, God can produce fruit in your life. And I believe a part of that fruit is impacting the life of someone else. There is someone, and I know I say this a lot, but I really mean it a lot when I say it. I believe that there is someone that should be impacted by the fact that you have a relationship with Jesus. Thank you. I say that, Holy Spirit. I remember years ago, one of my earlier jobs. I ain't thought about this in years. It's funny how God prepares you for what you're going to do later. So the church I used to go to, I had a lady that used to go to that church. And so she didn't like the pastor. She kind of like talked trash about the pastor all the time. And so she's like, man, I just don't like that church, the parking and all this other stuff. And so she sat next to me. Her cube was next to mine at work. And every Monday, so she stopped going to church, but every Monday she would ask me what was the sermon on Sunday. She didn't know I went to that church. And so every Monday, I would basically verbatim, I started bringing my notes with me from church. I would end up telling her, preach to her the same sermon I heard on Sunday. And she was like, oh man, that's so good. I needed to hear this. This is my season. All of that stuff. And it's so funny to me now how I was just like in my head, like, oh, I'm just being a good Christian. I'm just taking what I heard and saw an opportunity to help somebody or whatever. But now looking back, he was preparing me to even being able to share and be a mouthpiece for him then. Even though I was just living a cute life and I was happy with it, had my little pictures up and all that good stuff. And I just now thought about that, like the simplicity of just being obedient with God, thinking I'm just helping this lady, was also preparing me for what I would walk into later. Some 10, 12 years later. We'll leave it at 12. How about that? And so I want you to think about it this week. Think about this transition. Think about what God's doing in your life. And I want you to find the push to take a step. I think I posted like a Friday, Thursday, something like that on Instagram about finding one step you can do, taking one of your goals and figuring out what's the next step I need to take. Just take one. Don't get say, Pastor, I got 50 days on to do. No, just take one of your goals. And this week, come up with an action plan. That's your homework. I feel like I give y'all homework every week. And y'all ain't even turned it in, so we're going to have to talk about this after service. But no, take one of your goals. Again, take one of your goals. Come up with an action plan. I mean, we're going to get this stuff going, all right? January's around the corner, so we're going to get this thing going. I don't know why everybody waiting January to do stuff, but okay, fine. Take this week, take one of your goals, and just come up with a plan of action. Just say, what steps do I need to take? I ain't saying you got to have everything worked out, but just say from where I am now, if this is one of my goals, what step do I need to start taking? And come up with a plan. Y'all can do that, right? All right. So with this time, I ask you, one of my favorite things I get to ask you is simply this. Have you made Jesus Lord of your life? Have you made Jesus Lord of your life? It's about heaven or hell, obviously. That if you hadn't made the decision to make Jesus Lord of your life, that's the only way to go to heaven or hell, but it's bigger than that. Because all this stuff that we're talking about, having God on your side, having this whole plan, all of that stuff is connected to having a relationship with Jesus. If you have a relationship with Jesus, that's how you tap into your purpose. That's how you tap into your destiny. That's how you're able to go forward and really make an impact on this world, on your life, and everything else. And so you have to have a relationship with him. And so, I don't do like the little magic trick where it's like, folks, put your head down, put your one arm up, pop, lock, and drop it or something like that, whatever. I just simply ask you straight up, have you made Jesus the Lord of your life? And if you haven't, in a moment, I'm going to give you an opportunity to come up and make that decision. This isn't about church. This isn't about religion. This is about a relationship with the one who's created you, who loves you more than anyone else and wants to walk you through that process, but also help you fulfill everything that was created for you to do. That's the first thing. Second thing is rededication. Say rededication. Rededication. Oh, y'all awake. Good. Rededication is all about if you made that decision to make Jesus Lord of your life, but you say, you know what, Pastor, I've just grown cold towards the things of God. I know I'm not living a life pleasing to God, and I want to pray a prayer of rededication to recommit myself to the things of God and get right back on track with where God wants me to be. The cool thing about rededication is God's not mad at you. God's not sitting there like, oh, I'm mad at you. I'm like, no. God's sitting here with open arms, ready to bring you back in the fold, ready to get you back on track, to get you where you need to go. So if you need to rededicate at this time, now's the time to do that. Rededication. Third is prayer. One of the cool things that Jesus gives us the opportunity to do is to pray for one another. And when that veil was torn, when he died on the cross, we had the ability to go to God and pray for ourselves. And so we can add our faith with you and pray with you. So if you need prayer for anything, allow us, please, ma'am, please, sir, to pray with you today. And the last but not least thing is this. God's called you to be a part of this church and be a member. We would love to have you. We do two things well. One, we teach the word in a simple, uncomplicated way so you can understand it and apply it to your life. And two, we get busy about making an impact in our community. So at this time, Nigel's going to sing a little bit, and briefly I'm going to ask you to stand. And if you need to come up and make a decision, now's the time to do it. And I want you to ask somebody next to you, do they need prayer? Do they need one of those things? And if they do, bring them down. All right? Amen?